Coming up on Hands on Mac, let's take a look at battery on your iPhone and what you need to know. Stay tuned.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
This show is brought to you by members like you. Thanks. Welcome back to Hands on Mac. I am Mikah Sargent, and today we are taking a look at battery information on your iPhone. This involves optimized battery charging, kind of understanding the life of your battery, what you need to know about what the iPhone is doing in the background, and how to see what apps are maybe using too much battery life. It's all of that kind of stuff. It has everything to do with your battery, and it's a very simple process to get where we need to go. And from there, we'll talk a little bit about each of the features. So here we are on an iPhone, and what we're going to do is launch the Settings app. And once we get to the Settings app, you'll see at the top, your normal iCloud information, your Apple ID. We want to scroll down until we get to battery and tap on that. From here, you're going to see a screen that has battery percentage, low power mode, and battery health and charging as options. And then below that, at first, you're going to see a little loading wheel, but that loading wheel will quickly be replaced with a really interesting graph. And that graph has information about your battery level over time and the activity of different apps that you've used. So let's actually start at the top. I can quickly tell you the first option there, called battery percentage. That is a toggle for the top right corner of your screen where you have your battery. If you have this toggled on, as I do, then the battery percentage will show in the battery. Now, here's a little important tip. Because I am currently sharing the screen of this iPhone, the iPhone automatically displays a sort of pleasing to the eye kind of display. So you'll notice that the time says 9:41, despite the fact that it's actually 2:38, 2:39 here. There's the little icon for location information. And then to the right, all bars for service, all bars for Wi-Fi, and full battery life. Those are not actual, that's not representative of what the phone actually has going for it right now. So that battery percentage, if it's toggled on, it will show a number within the battery icon, letting you know how much battery life you have. I tend to have that off just because, it adds kind of to the stress. If you see 100 or if you see 100, you're fine. But if you see 50, 47, 32, it starts to get a little stressful versus just having that little battery icon kind of drop over time. The next option is low power mode. And what this does is when this is enabled, and you can have this kind of turn on automatically based on your battery life and all sorts of stuff, it will reduce background activity. So downloads that will happen automatically in the background, fetching your mail, fetching your calendar, all of that kind of stuff that happens in the background, apps kind of pulling from the web to get the latest information and make that available. That stuff gets slowed down or stopped so that you are not having as much background activity that is, of course, eating up your battery life. It's a great way to make sure that you can make that battery last even longer. And that, again, you can have turn on automatically, or you can turn on manually, both from here and from the control center. The next option is battery health and charging, and we're going to come back to that. That'll be the last kind of thing that we talk about, because I want to show you this chart down at the bottom, or a graph rather. I guess it's sort of a chart, sort of a graph, that has information about your usage. So you can sort this first and foremost between the last 24 hours of use and the last 10 days of use. And then below that, it has information for what the battery is currently doing. So right now, my battery is charging and it's at 76%. I can see below the times and how the battery was at those given times. So between 6 a.m. and 9 a.m., my battery fell to just about 50%. And then between 9 a.m. and just before 3 p.m., the battery was doing okay, because right before I left for the event that I had today, it started to charge the battery pretty quickly. And then there was no charging, of course, between about 9 and 2 p.m., at which point that I plugged it in for this. And so you can see that it shows that it is charging. And this, of course, will also change over the course of the day because it's the last 24 hours. So depending on what you're doing, that information will change. Underneath is activity. And this shows you when the screen was active, those are the dark blue bars, and when the screen was idle. So when the screen was kind of still on, but there was nothing taking place. So kind of the lock screen, that sort of deal. So 19 hours and 20 minutes of idle time, 3 hours and 21 minutes of active time. And it will show you these are 0 minutes, of course, at the bottom, 30 minutes and 60 minutes. So up to an hour of time, obviously, because we're doing 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, etc. And so an example would be that at 4 and 5 p.m., I spent a little over probably, what is this, sort of 35, 45 minutes of having the screen active and a smaller amount of screen idle time there. Then in the next section, you can see battery usage by app. This is a great way to see what apps are using the most data on your device. And whether it's happening in the foreground, the app you're actively using, or happening in the background, like with Fantastical here, where 6% of the battery usage in the last 24 hours was Fantastical doing stuff in the background. And you'll notice that there's a little area on the right that says show activity. That's actually a button. And if I press that button or tap that button, it will switch between showing the battery usage, how much of the battery was used to do these things, to actually how much of the time was used for these apps. So Instacart had 38 minutes on screen, and so it was being used for 38 minutes. Instagram had 22 minutes on the screen in total in the last 24 hours. And spent 1 minute in the background doing what it did. I'm not surprised to see Audible having 6 minutes of actual activity on the screen, but an hour and 28 minutes in the background in total. Now, if we go back up, that's for the last 24 hours. I'm going to choose the last 10 days, and you get the same kind of graphs, once again showing battery usage and the percentage over the course of the last 10 days. And then in the second part, once again, average screen time active and average screen time idle. Just 3 hours and 25 minutes in the last 10 days was the screen active, 19 hours of idle time. And once again, no surprise that in the last 10 days, 21 hours and 24 minutes for me were devoted to Audible, which is 15% of the battery life over the past 10 days. And that's because most of what it was doing was 20 hours and 44 minutes in the background. That's not a whole lot of usage. So it took, even though it seems to, having spent 20 hours, that's a lot, but it only took 15% of the battery. Now, that's what you need to know about kind of breaking down what each of these bits of this chart mean on this page. But the more important thing is battery health and charging. And that's where we're going to go next. So in battery health and charging, you will see, depending on the age of your iPhone, 4 or 3 different options here. The first option is in regard to what's called maximum capacity. And this says over the course of, so we know this, over the course of time, our battery is going to age. And as it ages, it doesn't work as well. And so when it was fresh, it was able to keep kind of 100% of the capacity of the device as it was whenever it was built. But as the battery ages, that maximum capacity is going to drop. And so this percentage will reflect that. You might see it drop to 97, 96 over time as you use this device more. And depending on how low this is, it may mean that you have to charge your device more often. That's what it boils down to. The next section is called peak performance capability. This is actually, it changes depending on what the current capacity and health of your battery is. And what this does is it looks at your iPhone battery, looks at how old it is, looks at how well it's working, how well it's not working, and will make adjustments to how the system is running to make sure that you have the best possible experience on your iPhone. So that might mean that it will slow things down over time in order to make sure that your phone keeps running and runs for longer. Because the alternative is to have your phone kind of working and then suddenly need to shut down because the battery is not capable of keeping up with the sort of peak performance of the device. That's why it says peak performance capability. Now, you have the option if your battery ages and you've got an older iPhone and you you see this change from peak performance capability, you will have the option to disable or enable this peak performance capability. So you can choose to let the system do what it needs to do, which is kind of throttle things essentially so that your phone keeps running. Or you can say, I don't care if my phone shuts off randomly. I don't care if there are all these issues. I want my phone to be working at its best, even though there's an impact on the battery. So that toggle will be available if your maximum capacity starts to drop and the health and the age of the battery change. Because this is a almost brand new iPhone, there's no issue there. The next section is charging optimization. And we're going to talk about that last because this we'll come back to that because it's another screen. The last option here is clean energy charging. Now, this is only available if you live in a region that has a power grid that publishes information about when clean energy is available. If you live in an area that does not do that, then you will probably not see this clean energy charging option. What this does is it essentially helps you to kind of lower your carbon footprint by doing what it can to charge your device when the energy is reported as cleaner as per the clean energy publications from your energy grid. So here in Petaluma and whatever else is involved with this grid, whatever other places are involved with this grid, there are times when the energy is cleaner than other times and makes less of an impact on the environment. And so the iPhone, with all of the algorithmic stuff it's already doing that we'll talk about in a moment, it will also attempt to charge your device when it is cleaner, as long as it also lines up with kind of when it is expecting to do its charging already. It's a little complicated, but you don't have to worry about kind of the behind the scenes stuff. You can either turn it on or turn it off and just know that what it's trying to do is make your charging greener. All right, let's hop into charging optimization. If you have an iPhone 15 or newer, then you are able to see three settings in the charging optimization section. You'll see optimized battery charging, 80% limit, or none. Otherwise, you will see optimized battery charging and none. Now, let's talk about each of these. None obviously means that your iPhone, when you plug it in, is just going to charge to 100%. And then what the iPhone automatically does is it will discharge a few percent and then charge back up and then discharge and charge back up. And that is for the sake of the battery. It's sort of a healthy thing for the battery to do. 80% limit, if you do have an iPhone that supports this, then you will see an option to turn on 80% limit. And what this will do is it will charge your iPhone only ever to 80% and then stop charging. Now, I say only ever, but here's the thing. Apple notes in its support documents that it's not quite only ever 80%. Most of the time, almost all of the time, your phone will charge to 80% and then it stops charging. If the battery level gets down to 75%, charging will resume until your battery charge level reaches 80% again. And then as it falls, it'll charge back up to 80%. So 80% is the limit, and then it stops charging. Again, it starts to fall and then charges back up. However, if you have this setting turned on, occasionally your iPhone will still charge to 100% because it needs to do that to maintain accurate estimates for the sort of the health of the battery. So on occasion, it will charge to 100%. You won't see that too often. Most of the time, 80% stop, discharge, 80% stop, discharge. For the rest of you, if you have an iPhone up to, but not including the iPhone 15, so it's iPhone 14 models and earlier, you will have the optimized battery charging option. I recommend using this one. And the way that this works is over time, your iPhone will look at your charging habits and will determine when it is a good idea to charge your device. So it helps to reduce kind of the wear on your battery. It helps to make the lifespan of the battery better, because we know that the more your battery is charged to 100%, the more that the battery stays at that 100%, it does have an impact on the life of the battery. So what it does is it delays charging past 80% in specific situations. It's going to basically, again, learn your daily charging routine, and it knows when you're going to connect the phone to a charger for an extended period of time. And it pays attention to that with the knowledge that it will charge to 80%. And then right before you are meant to kind of take the phone and go with it, then it charges that remaining 20% to 100, or as close to 100 as possible. So over the course of the night, for example, if you regularly thwack your iPhone down on a MagSafe charger, or you plug it in, it charges to 80% and then holds it there, again, with all of the magic built in of needing to discharge, blah, blah, blah. And then say, 30 minutes before you wake up, and you always grab your phone at this specific time, then it charges to that full 100%. So it didn't sit at 100% overnight. Now, a couple of things to understand about optimized battery charging. Number one, if you see on your phone the option the notification that says optimized battery charging, it will say on your phone as a notification, optimized battery charging, and then below it, it'll say scheduled to finish charging by blank. And this is, again, based on your activity. That time that's on there is whenever the phone is going to be, to 100. You can tap and hold on that notification at any time and say, go ahead and charge it fully. I just want you to go ahead and charge it now. Don't stop, make it full. Now, there are a couple of things that will impact your phone's ability to enable and set up optimized battery charging. For one, you need to make sure that you have location services turned on. So you need to go to Settings, Privacy and Security, Location Services, and turn on Location Services. Then you need to go to Settings, Privacy and Security, Location Services, and then tap on System Services and make sure System Customization is turned on. And last but not least, you want to go into Settings, Privacy and Security, Location Services, System Services, and Significant Locations, and make sure that Significant Locations is turned on. Those toggles will make sure that the iPhone knows your activity and becomes familiar with your home and when you are charging your device in order to properly set this up. I'll include a link in the show notes to the support page that has those different pages, those places that you need to go. That's only if you don't ever see optimized battery charging to turn on. If it's turning on just fine, you've probably got those settings enabled, so you don't even need to go there. The last thing I want to tell you about optimized battery charging is that the phone needs at least 14 days, 2 weeks, to learn your charging habits. You will not see it turn on before 14 days. If it's a new phone and a new, you're doing this for the first time, you won't see it engage before that. Your iPhone also needs to have 9 charges of 5 hours or more in a given location for optimized battery charging to engage. So that means in a given location, my home, my iPhone needs to charge 9 times where that charge is 5 hours or more in order for us to see that. So basically, in 2 weeks of charging on your nightstand, your phone has all of the data that it needs to know your habits for charging and pulling it off of the charger each night or each morning or whatever it happens to be for you, at which point you will start to see optimized battery charging kick in. I highly recommend using optimized battery charging. Turn it on. It's going to extend the life of your phone battery, and you don't need to think about all of this. Don't change your habits. Don't try to sort of dig in and figure out how it's working. That's A, what this video is for. But B, the important thing is it does this stuff for you, and it's good at doing this stuff, and it makes sure that the life of your battery is extended. So that's everything you need to know about battery health and charging on your iPhone. That is from the maximum capacity of the battery, a little bit about iPhone throttling, of course, charging optimization, and for those of you who have it in your area, clean energy charging. Folks, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Hands on Mac. I, of course, am Mikah Sargent, and I love bringing this show to you every single week. I'll be back next week with another episode of Hands on Mac. If you have questions, comments, concerns, email me, Mikah at twit.tv, and I'll be back with you again soon. Bye-bye.